Today on Notsam Wrestling, we are coming off an extraordinary Royal Rumble weekend, not only looking at everything that happened this weekend, but what it all means and where it all goes from here. This is Notsam Wrestling. Thank you to all of you guys that came out to the live Notsam Wrestling podcast that we did in Tampa over the weekend. Everybody that tuned in to Busted Open while I was guest hosting on SiriusXM and on their podcast out there in Tampa for Royal Rumble weekend. And what a weekend it was. We have a lot to talk about the Royal Rumble, but of course, something that I think was on everybody's mind was the lawsuit that came out on Thursday, and specifically the accusations made against Vince McMahon in that lawsuit. Now, there's just, if you read even a portion of that lawsuit, the accusations are absolutely horrendous. It is extremely difficult to read, not as a wrestling fan, as a human being, that any of that could have happened or could be true is really, I mean, it's scary. It's a tough read. It really is. And I think it left a lot of us shaken, and you can only imagine the people that were actually affected by the situation. But action was taken quickly and decisively. WWE and TKO both within 36 hours. It might have been even less. It might have been 24, announcing that Vince McMahon was no longer involved any way whatsoever, whether it be as the executive chairman of the board or in any way, shape, or form with TKO or WWE. He is now completely removed from WWE as a company and from TKO as the parent company of WWE, which, I mean, is interesting from a historical context, right? Because there's not a McMahon involved in the WWE at all anymore, but it's tough, with everything going on. I don't think any of us are really thinking about the historical wrestling context of all of it. You do have to hope that when accusations like this come up, that all of the truth comes out and that every party that is responsible for anything involved is held responsible, that light is shined on it, and we find out the whole truth that surrounds these accusations. Like I said, really tough read, but important that we cultivate and make sure that we continue to cultivate an industry in which people feel safe, and this isn't just about wrestling, like anywhere that stuff like this never happens. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to know what to say because this is a wrestling podcast. Obviously it would be hard not to say something, but as a wrestling podcast, we talk about wrestling stories and we fantasy book, and we don't have to try to unpack these serious issues, but sometimes you have to talk about them because they're associated with what you're talking about. But if this is something that you want to follow, and I think all of us wrestling fans should at least be aware of what is going on with the industry as a whole and all this stuff. There are a lot of great news sources that are covering this. Wall Street Journal, New York Times, like journalistic pillars are covering this story, and I would encourage everyone to read those sources. Don't worry too much about us commentators opining on the stuff that we're reading about. Read it for yourself. I mean, I think there's only one opinion to have of all of it. So I can't imagine an opinion differing from it after reading it, but it is what it is. Very, very difficult to have to read that, and it was kind of everywhere. And while all this was going on, the Royal Rumble and everything around it was also going on in Tampa, Florida. Now, these are storylines, of course, that we've been talking about for a long time, and this was a Royal Rumble that I think had more wild speculation revolving around it than ever before. I don't remember a time when there were more possibilities and more people had more ideas than this year. at the Royal Rumble. I'll tell you what, I cut a podcast for Busted Open that I put on the Notsam Wrestling YouTube channel. That was my instant reaction after being inside the stadium, inside the Trop for the Royal Rumble Premium Live event, and the feeling that I got there. And I'll talk about that in a minute because the crowd is definitely something that came into question from a lot of people. But when I heard this year that they were actually just sticking to 4 matches for the Royal Rumble, I go, okay, you got a fatal 4-way, you got KO and Logan Paul. That between those 2 matches, if that takes an hour, that'd be a lot, right? Then you got 2 Royal Rumble matches, more or less 60 minutes each, right? So I'm thinking 2:45 will be out the door before 11 o'clock. This will be like a takeover. It went on quite a bit longer than that. And, you know, that's how long I guess it took to tell the stories. I'm glad everybody got their time. I'll start with Kevin Owens and Logan Paul. So Kevin Owens and Logan Paul undoubtedly had the toughest spot of the night. It went Women's Royal Rumble, which started hot and ended big. So, and it was well over an hour of energy that was pumping out of 48,000 people in that stadium. Then you had the fatal 4-way world title match, which again had people expelling energy, and because a villain won the thing, a lot of people were disappointed by that. So now, after those 2 massive statements, Kevin Owens and Logan Paul are coming out here to tell their story. And it's a story where, out of all the matches on the show, I think that that's the one that had the least discussion of who do you think's going to win. Most people walked into that match going, well, Logan Paul has to win because it's his first title defense. We're going right towards WrestleMania. The only reason to put that title on Logan Paul is because of the publicity that is drawn from Logan Paul being one of your champions. So if you're going to take it off him now, what's the point? So so they were in a tough spot. The match was good, but I think what made all the difference in the world was that ending. Right? The guy jumping out of the crowd. And I won't say who I talked to, but what was really interesting was, and this is why it's an everything counts era. Everything counts. Pay attention to every little detail because you never know what's going to get paid off later. So the last time somebody jumped over the barricade or whatever and gave Logan Paul brass knuckles, I think it was the same dude, gave Logan Paul the brass knuckles, it was the same referee as the referee that was in the Kevin Owens-Logan Paul match at the Royal Rumble. So I think the idea was that this guy, this referee is like, oh, no, I know this trick. I'm not going to fall for it again. It was really interesting to me that this whole story of the way this match ended, instead of a screwy finish revolving around a referee being terrible at his job, as they usually do, this was a finish that revolved around a referee actually paying attention to all the little details. The referee actually looked like he was a great referee because there's all this confusion. Guy jumps over the barricade, referee won't allow it. Security comes out, and it's real security. So it feels almost like, real, is this supposed to be happening? Grayson Waller and Austin Theory come out. There's more distractions afoot, and those brass knuckles get slid in the ring. KO is able to avoid the punch, get the brass knuckles off Logan Paul. We get this feeling that justice is being served. And now Logan Paul is going to get a taste of his own medicine when Kevin Owens is able to knock out Logan Paul with the brass-knuckled fist. And what happens? The referee counts 1, 2, and it was such a good count that when he came down for that 2.5, everybody in my section was like, yeah! Half of them thought that the match was over, that KO had won the thing. Like, it was like, oh my God. Like, we walked in thinking this was clearly going to be all about Logan Paul, and KO just won the United... Wait, what happened? And the replay shows up on the Tron that as he was coming down for the 3, the referee looked up and he saw those knuckles still on Kevin Owens' hand. And because of that, Kevin Owens gets disqualified. And it's like, he wasn't screwed. He was doing something morally right. He was standing up for himself. He was not allowing Logan Paul to cheat like he did before. But ultimately, Kevin Owens made a decision. He made a decision to break a rule. And because of that, the referee caught him. And it stopped this thing in its tracks. It ended Kevin Owens' opportunity at the United States Championship. So I'd have to imagine that we're going to get to Perth, Australia, and the Elimination Chamber, and that we're going to have a KO Logan Paul rematch. And I don't know how that's going to go, right? Because I guess I, like a lot of people, have been thinking LA Knight versus Logan Paul would be a great match for WrestleMania. But what you don't want is Kevin Owens losing to Logan Paul twice and then going into WrestleMania to face somebody else. Because he'll be going in with no sort of momentum, right? Every other WrestleMania, the last 2 years, he's been a main eventer. WrestleMania 38, he main events with Stone Cold. WrestleMania 39, he takes Sami Zayn with him, and they main event against the Usos. WrestleMania 40, he's going to walk in after losing to Logan Paul twice. That's rough. That's a rough position to be in. Unless they do what one of the scenarios that I talked about with Tommy Dreamer over the weekend was, which is maybe they're not going to go with LA Knight for WrestleMania, and maybe they have Jake Paul involved, and they get Logan and Jake together, and then Kevin Owens teams up with the person who is better at facing celebrities than maybe anybody has ever been in WWE history. Somebody who at the same WrestleMania that Kevin Owens main evented with Stone Cold Steve Austin fought Johnny Knoxville and had people saying that was one of the best matches on the entire two-night show. Sami Zayn. If they were able to get the Paul brothers versus KO and Sami Zayn, that would be freaking awesome. And it would bring in all those eyeballs that you want from the Paul brothers. Again, now we're reaching. I don't know if that's where we're going. I don't know what you do with LA Knight. I don't even know if we have Jake Paul. I don't know. But it would answer the question, because you're going, well, it's not like Sami Zayn. He just came back at the Rumble. So at the moment, it's not like there's something there for him. I wouldn't be surprised, based on the way the card's lining up, if you end up with Sami Zayn versus Drew McIntyre. You know, we saw a lot of action between Sami Zayn and Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania. But okay, now we're getting ahead of ourselves. And what we'll talk about after we kind of go over everything that happened at the Rumble. But the fact that everybody reacted to that finish, that's when you know if something worked or not. The fact that they were in that tough spot and that people were exhausted from everything they'd already seen, a full Royal Rumble match and a Fatal 4-Way Roman Reigns championship match. And that last spot, that finish was so satisfying. In a negative way, people wanted Kevin Owens to win, but just that that little thing, the referee seeing the brass knuckles, was so like, and clicked with people so much that they all reacted to it. I thought it was really, really cool. Speaking of that Fatal 4-Way Universal Undisputed Championship match, LA Knight, Randy Orton, Roman Reigns, and AJ Styles. I had said before, and you guys know that this is how I felt because I probably said it more than once, I didn't want Roman to have to interfere or use interference. I wanted to see a dominant Roman Reigns again. So rarely. In the beginning of this title reign, that would come up every now and then. He did guillotine choke Braun Strowman on SmackDown. You know, these are things that happened. He has been dominant at points without the use of outside interference. But he used it at Royal Rumble. Now, there is a difference. You know, when if you're really paying attention to this match, the difference is that I would argue that the outside interference did not immediately lead to the decision. You know, in the Drew McIntyre match and the Cody Rhodes match, in some of these matches, Solo interfering is what allowed Roman Reigns to win. But in the Fatal 4-Way, Solo interferes, but then he's stopped by AJ Styles. It looks like he's going to stack the bodies up and just allow the Tribal Chief to pin them. But before he can get AJ stops him in his tracks. Makes you wonder if maybe we're headed to an AJ Styles Solo Sikoa Premium Live event situation, either at the Elimination Chamber or at WrestleMania. But I think that the fact that he was able to take that out of the equation And then after Solo Sikoa interfered, AJ Styles used a chair. Randy Orton used a thumb in the eye. So 3 out of the 4 that I saw, I don't know if LA Knight did anything that was against the rules traditionally, but at least 3 out of the 4 did things that in normal matches would get you disqualified. But because it was a fatal 4-way, obviously they weren't going to get disqualified. So because all 3 of them did it, it at least gives you some room for argument. But it's not the same as a dominant victory. All that said, Roman Reigns did just boom, hit that move, get the pin, and walks out once again as champion. Now, I also think that if the Royal Rumble is leading to the match that it appears it's leading to, you know, when I wanted Roman to be dominant, that was on a road to wrestle The Rock at WrestleMania. If that match isn't happening, and we are, for lack of a better term, telling a different story, it might be crucial that there be interference. And that's going to be a big theme that I talk about later, but that this is one of those things where, depending on where we're going, annoying interference might be what we need to do to get the payoff that we're going to get. And there was a time in WWE where it would be tough to give them that much credit, but these days, it feels like stuff is planned out well in advance, that they're paying attention to detail, and that this would be something that they would do, that they would have the finish of this match reflect where they're going after the match. You got the Women's Rumble match, right? The Women's Royal Rumble. I thought the Women's Royal Rumble was my favorite match of the night. It was just a really well put together Rumble, in the sense that the way the moments were paced, the way the stories were told, just how hot you started out, right? Like the fact that Natalya comes out first. And it's like, cool. We're going to get to see Natalya really show off why she's been in the WWE as long as she has, why she's got those Guinness World Records for amount of matches, why she's the one training people, why she's this voice of experience. We get to see her be an Iron Woman. And then entrant number 2, I'm amazing. It's really happening. There were all these rumors. We thought it might be happening. She had already said goodbye to TNA. Naomi, after I don't know how long it's been, well over a year, could even be close to 2 at this point, finally returns to the WWE as Naomi, with the lights, with the entrance, with the outfit. And I mean, people went nuts. It was about as hot as you could start a Royal Rumble match, just because you go, this is so amazing. Amazing. Naomi is actually back. And this is where we're starting. Whew! What are we going to get next? So that was, I thought, really, really cool. I thought that the MVP for me, my favorite competitor in the Women's Royal Rumble match, was Chelsea Green. Chelsea Green just getting beat from pillar to post, but just the fact that, like, just circumstantially was getting squished and squashed as Piper Niven and Nia Jax were fighting each other. And Piper was trying to save Chelsea Green. But when Nia was in the corner, you know, doing the Vader thing to Piper, and Chelsea was just squished behind her. And then they end up getting slammed on top of Chelsea. And it was like a Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner cartoon. It was so much fun. I just love everything about it. The tease of Chelsea coming in and she's going to get eliminated immediately, just like last year. Nope. And then she gets back in. Oh, she's going to get eliminated now. Nope. And she actually survives in there. She actually gets some time. I mean, look, there might be nobody on that roster that takes whatever she gets and makes more with it than Chelsea Green. And the Royal Rumble is just a great example of it. That there are some people that are going to come in and be Iron Women, like we talked about, like the Natalyas, like the Baileys. There are going to be some women that come in and just utterly dominate. Nia Jax, people like that. And then there are going to be some women that are in entertainment spots And that can either be something that you just kind of laugh at and go like, oh, okay, that was whatever. Or it could be a true highlight of the match. And if you're a true highlight of the match, it doesn't matter what makes you a highlight. The human highlight reel is a great compliment. Nobody asks, what are they highlights of? It's a highlight reel. So the fact that Chelsea Green went out there and didn't have a highlight in the Rumble, had a highlight reel in the Rumble, is all you need to know about how good she was in that battle royal. Jordynne Grace coming in. This was something that the rumors started circulating the day of the Rumble on Saturday. I guess somebody had seen it on the Tron or whatever it was. But you go, no way. Because she's not signed to WWE. This wasn't like, this was kind of, it wasn't even really like Mickie James. Because Mickie James came into the WWE Royal Rumble as TNA Knockouts champion with that championship title. But the reason she was in it was because she was a WWE legend. It's not like they just said whoever the TNA Knockouts champion is, we want her in the Battle Royal. It was, we want Mickie James as a legend in the Battle Royal. She happens to be the TNA Knockouts champion. Let's make a deal. This time it's, no, the TNA Knockouts champion. And the commentary's putting it over. I thought all three guys did such a great job. Corey Graves, Michael Cole, and Pat McAfee, of course. But the TNA Knockouts champion coming in and going like, that's how big of a deal this is. And it really does shine a new light on the prize in this match and how important the Royal Rumble is. The fact that somebody who's already a champion in another company would show up just for one night, because if they win, they get to main event WrestleMania. It drives home this idea that no matter where you are in the industry, there's nothing bigger than main eventing WrestleMania. And so you'll do whatever you can to get into this Royal Rumble match. It inspired my thoughts. It made me think about what a cool idea it would be if the Royal Rumble became this thing that like people from other companies came to regularly. That every year you had guys and girls from other companies that would come into the Royal Rumble, because no matter what company you're in, you want to main event WrestleMania. And that's the whole story. Somebody from TNA could come in. Somebody from Japan could come in. Somebody from Mexico could come in. And it's like you have, whatever it is, 20, 25 participants are all WWE superstars. But I think, like, it's always cool to see a legend pop up. But for the goal of explaining how important this match is industry-wide, I think getting people in from other companies every year would be a move that I would encourage, I would do, I would push, because it was really cool this year. And it just happened really the once. The R-Truth spot, speaking of like entertainment spots that end up being complete highlights of the match, not only R-Truth coming in and accidentally entering the Women's Royal Rumble just because he got it wrong, but Valhalla getting so furious with R-Truth. Like R-Truth, oh, my bad, and being escorted out, and you saw behind him how enraged Valhalla was with what he had done. I mean, so entertaining. Tiffany Stratton, of course, coming in. Liv Morgan with the big return, I thought was a great moment. And then in terms of just pure moments, other than the ending, the victory, man, when that Titantron said Jade, the word Jade going across it, and people realized it really is happening. Because you hadn't heard any rumors that were specifically substantiated. It was more just an assumption. As a wrestling fan, it feels like the Royal Rumble would be a good time for Jade Cargill to debut in the WWE. And when she actually did, it was like, oh my God, it's really happening. Because for months now, we've been coming up with ideas of what Jade could potentially do in the WWE, who she could feud with, what she might do at WrestleMania, when she might debut. She could do this. She could go to NXT. She could, we saw her face-to-face with Charlotte. We saw her face-to-face with Becky, and now we're actually seeing her in the ring. We're seeing if that charisma that we've been promised, if that charisma that we've seen in a parking lot walking to the arena on NXT in the crow's nest, if that charisma translates to walking out into the ring, and then what happens when she gets in the ring and it's full of established superstars? Does she still carry the same weight? Does she still carry that charisma? And we found out beyond a shadow of a doubt the answer is yes. Jade Cargill gets in there, and it's an instant game changer. There were so many different moments of Jade Cargill sizing somebody up, and you were like, this is what we've been waiting for. Every single time she stared at somebody, that's the WrestleMania match. That's the WrestleMania match. I think right now, I'm leaning with that first WrestleMania match to maybe be Nia Jax versus Jade Cargill. Going back to everything counting, going back to there's a reason why things happen. You go, why would Nia Jax beat Becky Lynch? They're getting Becky ready to potentially have a match with Rhea Ripley, maybe. So why would Nia Jax have beaten Becky Lynch? Well, because if Nia Jax is going to be the one that goes one-on-one with Jade Cargill, then you want to have portrayed Nia Jax as being unbeatable. Maybe you're not ready to put the women's championship on Jade, but you want her to have this victory against somebody who has terrorized the entire division, including your top stars. And if Jade's the one that can beat her, well, then I think Jade's got something to put up, on her shoulders. Jade has a reason to have a chip on her shoulder at that point. So I like that. But then, honestly, when Jade and Bianca looked at each other, when Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill are staring each other down, it's like, whoa. Because you're looking at Bianca, somebody who started in the Performance Center and just got better and better and better and better to the point where she's having classic WrestleMania matches. She's a person who's at the top of the women's division. But it's not enough to just get to the top. You have to stay up there. And what do you have to do to stay up there? Well, now you have to compete with somebody like Jade Cargill. So staying up there, which is it's cliche at this point. But staying up at the top becomes far more difficult than it was to get there, because now you've got a lot of hungry competitors that are coming up, and they're getting better and better, and they're watching everything that you do, and one of those people is Jade Cargill. Do I think that I eventually will get the Jade Cargill-Bianca Belair match, and it's going to be incredible. I don't know if WrestleMania is the time to do that, right? Because WrestleMania is, what'd they say, 70 days away, 69. I hope it's 69 days away. That'd be hilarious. But it's, it's 2 months away, more or less. Are we ready to already do Bianca and Jade, or do we want to see Jade's star rise and rise and rise and rise until we're in a position where something's got to give and we get Jade and Bianca? There were no legends in this match. I mean, there were no legends really in either match, which I'm going to talk about that more after we talk about the men's Royal Rumble match, as a matter of fact. But ultimately, Bayley won the Royal Rumble. I believe that I just read before we started recording that she got 63 minutes and change in that ring. So she actually beat Rhea Ripley's record. Now, Bayley has already started on this campaign that she's going to challenge Rhea Ripley, because she's doing the right thing by damage control. And I think that that's key to pay attention to. That Bayley did the right thing by damage control leading up to the Royal Rumble, even when everything changed when Kairi Sane came back to the WWE. She's clearly got this history with Bayley. And since then, Bayley has been almost trying to prove that she's a team player with damage control. So where do I think this goes? I think that it gets to a point where damage control is pushing and pushing and pushing. And I think it's by design that the night before the Royal Rumble, damage control also wins the women's tag team championship. Because at first, Bayley's going to say, well, we'll all be champions. But then I think damage control is not going to like the idea of Bayley going and thinking that she's going to beat Rhea Ripley and come be the main champion of damage control, because they've already got Io. So I think they're going to need to kind of put Bayley in her place. And I think they might push her until she's been pushed too far. And of all people, Bayley becomes 2024's Batista. Here's what I see for Bayley. I see Bayley turning babyface, maybe following the Elimination Chamber. Maybe that's where you have your big moment. But I see where at one point I almost saw Damage Control turning babyface and Bayley being the heel, like Bayley turning on Damage Control. Now I see it the other way around. I think that especially after this Rumble win, there's a lot of love for Bayley. And a lot of us are reflecting on the journey that she's had and the journey that she's been on that we've all been there to witness, which is a big deal. It makes us feel like we're a part of it. I think that Bayley's going to turn babyface, but I don't think we're going to get side ponytail. I don't think there ain't no stopping us. I don't think we're getting the hugger back. I think that that's done. I don't think that when you're evolving as a performer, I don't think you ever go backwards, right? So I think that we get a babyface version of this Bayley, where she's still cracking jokes, but she's cracking jokes on the bad guys, right? This is the far more human being version of Bayley than the over-the-top cartoon character, overly positive, almost childlike Bayley that we got when she first was in NXT and then came on the main roster. All that said, I think we're going to get a cool babyface version of Bayley that looks like she could mess you up. You know, those are the qualities that I think we're going to get. That said, I think there will be one moment, and that one moment will be WrestleMania. I think Bayley will come out onto this giant stage at WrestleMania 40. It will be an XL stage. Not just the Roman numeral, the size. A massive stage. And she'll stand up there and she'll be looking at everybody. And in that moment, all of us in Philadelphia will be going crazy, not just for Bayley in the moment, but for everything that Bayley has done over the last, 8 years. We'll be thinking about the fact that Sasha and Becky and Charlotte all got called up before Bayley. We'll be thinking about TakeOver Brooklyn with Sasha and Bayley going one-on-one and changing the way we looked at women's wrestling. We'll think about Bayley coming up to the main roster. We'll think about the fact that she didn't get the Royal Rumble win until right now the way the others did. She didn't get the WrestleMania main events the way the others did. And she's had to fight and scratch and claw to get to where she's at. And while we're thinking that, and while we're looking at Bayley, who's standing there taking it all in, for one night only, that's when we get the most massive display of wacky wobblers that we have ever seen. It'll be wacky wobbler mania at WrestleMania. It'll be like the greatest used car lot that you've ever seen. Just all these wacky wobblers in the air, and they'll all finally come back for the first time in years since she took that big pole with a knife on it to them that one SmackDown in Las Vegas. The wacky wobblers will return for one night and one night only, WrestleMania 40, because those wobblers will be back for the night that Bayley finally gets that big championship win at WrestleMania against Io Sky. Moving on to the men's Rumble now. The men's Rumble, I feel like, is the one that people have been most mixed on. And some of this has been the crowd. And I'll tell you that I think a lot of the perception of the crowd in Tampa, from my experience being there, probably has to do with the layout and the fact that it's a baseball stadium. It's a massive building, and I know there have been plenty of baseball stadiums that loud noises have come from, and there were loud noises that were made during that night. But I found that the crowd was low on energy during the Logan Paul Kevin Owens match. But they didn't strike me from inside the building as a particularly bad crowd. And I've been in buildings where the crowds are not good, and I'm like, oh boy, this isn't working at all. And that didn't strike me at all. In fact, I haven't heard that from anybody except the people watching on television. So I'm not denying that that's what it sounded like on television, but I will tell you that being in the building, the energy wasn't dipping, and they didn't feel like anybody was leaving. You know, it's not like people were leaving early at all. It took forever to get out of there. The traffic was hideous. So the men's Rumble, like the women's Rumble, was 0 on legends, and I think had less surprises than people thought. But I think in both Rumbles, you really have to look at what's going on. It is an amazing thing that the WWE was able to do a 30-woman Royal Rumble match with no legends and 2 NXT people. And that's it. Every other Royal Rumble, it's either been a ton of legends, a ton of people from NXT, or a little bit of both. And the fact that in both of these matches, they were predominantly made up by superstars that are on the active roster, I think tells you not that the WWE didn't want to book surprises, not that it was lazy or whatever. I think that what it tells you is that the WWE is making a specific investment in the talent that they've got, which is something that we've asked them to do for years and years and years. Invest in the talent that's there week in, week out. Well, what better way to do that than to make the Royal Rumble about them, not about outsiders? And I think that in the moment, the Royal Rumble is designed to be that instant gratification match that every 2 minutes or 90 seconds, as was the case in the men's match, that there's a new giant mind-blowing thing happening, and it's just so fun and so fun and so fun and so fun. But realistically, if you want to design the Royal Rumble to benefit you long-term, you can't just be hitting endorphins every 2 minutes. You have to be strategic in what you're doing and make sure that you use those moments to help further the stories of the people that are going to be on television every single week. And I think that's what we got in this men's Rumble match, right? As far as the surprises go, you had Andrade debuting. When you heard El Idolo, you heard this El Idolo. And it was like, whoa, he's here, he's here. He had the great mask with the antlers on and everything. I thought that was awesome. Pat McAfee jumping in. I'll be honest, I did not love the Pat McAfee spot, and here's why. I loved that Pat McAfee got a spot. I thought it was smart to have him in. I understand why it was done, right? Maybe Pat wasn't in any hurry to get in there and take bumps. And also, this is what I was talking about. If Pat's not coming back, and if we're not starting a story that's going to build up towards either an Elimination Chamber match or a WrestleMania match with Pat, then why give him those key moments that you could be giving to the people that you're building? All that said, it just didn't ring fully true to me that a guy who did a moonsault off a War Games cage, that a guy who, like, in his first match was doing Panama Sunrises, right? That this guy, who's nuts, would just eliminate himself. It was almost like, I wish that he would have tried like a springboard or a crossbody onto Omos, and Braun had walked away, and just, if you're going to do it, instead of having Pat eliminate himself, just let Omos pick him up and drop him. Now, I think another part of it was they wanted Pat to stay on commentary. And if he gets beaten up, he can't just go back and jump on the commentary table because they lose credibility. So that was probably part of it as well. But just because of who Pat has portrayed himself to be on television, in the past, I would have liked it if at least Omos picked him up and dropped him. Right? Like maybe Pat like runs towards Omos, and Omos picks him up by the armpits, walks him over, drops him right over the top rope, and Pat just kind of stumbles back into the commentary table and says like, well, that didn't work, and keeps it going. But whatever, that's nitpicky. Braun Breaker was a big surprise and a dominant one. I think the best part about Braun Breaker coming in was that he made an instant impact, right? He's the one who gets Omos out. He gets Finn Balor out. He's getting like giants and former champions out. And then out of nowhere, Dirty Dom eliminates him. So you've got to imagine that if Braun Breaker is sticking around, and Triple H made a point at the press conference to put him over, and there was a promo with him on WWE's YouTube channel. So if he's coming to the main roster now, then at some point Dominic Mysterio is going to have to pay for that. And the idea of Braun Breaker versus Dominic Mysterio feels very entertaining to me. That's the beast that Dominic Mysterio would have to avoid. I thought that, again, a hot start to it. The idea that Jimmy and Jay started together, faced off. And this is something, it's been unique with Jimmy and Jay. Because ever since Jay left SmackDown, people don't even talk about the idea that these two guys could fight. They don't really, I mean, Jimmy wears the no yeet shirt. And Roman says he doesn't like yeet. But it's not like Jimmy says threatening things about Jay or Jay says threatening things about Jimmy. It's almost just been bubbling over in a corner somewhere. And like we finally see it and it's just a tease. Because they get their hands on each other a little bit and then that's kind of it, right? So, but it's just what I think it is it's been months since Jay came over to Monday Night Raw and he's told new stories. He's almost moved on from the bloodline and the Jimmy thing, with that being the foundation that his character is based on, but not what his character is doing right now. And I felt like that face-off was kind of kicking the car into motion, was getting things going to slowly build to what will be a WrestleMania match. And, you know, you look at it, right, and you go, what is their deal? Jey Uso is so over. People love main event Jey Uso. And they love him independent of the bloodline. He is so popular. You go to live events, whatever. Yeet shirts, whatever. People love Jey Uso. Why does he lose so much? Why can't he win a big match? And then you go, maybe the reason he's losing so much is because the plan is to have Jimmy versus Jay at WrestleMania. And you want to go into the match with the idea that Jay might lose. If Jay is dominating everybody on Raw, and Jimmy is still a third stringer on the bloodline, then there's not really a compelling story there. But if Jimmy brings that forward, brother, you can't win a match. You haven't won any big matches. You're a big star now, but you lose. And I'm going to be the next one to beat you. Well, then you've got something. So that's what I mean. And as we're looking at all this stuff, I think we're seeing more and more of that. There are decisions being made that as they're happening, you'll look at them, I'll look at them and go, well, I don't get that at all. But then you realize down the road, it's all being done for a reason. And getting to the final two in this match was part of that. You know, a lot of people thought that they were going on too long. And this was a moment that people were like, the crowd was dead when it was Punk versus Cody. But in that room, the crowd didn't feel dead. The crowd felt tense. The crowd felt like, so here's what it felt like. It felt like, something fell down. Oh, it was my phone. There was a realization, sorry about that. There was this realization that this match that had been teased of CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes, we were seeing that in front of our faces. This idea that either CM Punk or Cody Rhodes is going to win the Royal Rumble. We're actually down to CM Punk and Cody Rhodes. If CM Punk is going to win the Royal Rumble, he's going to have to eliminate Cody Rhodes. And who wants to see that? And if Cody Rhodes is going to win the Royal Rumble, I don't understand how that works because I thought Roman Reigns was going to fight The Rock. And so there's this tension of this thing that's been building in all of our heads as we've been fantasy booking left and right and speculating wildly. This tension's been building and now it's playing out in front of our face. And they went on a little long. I felt fine about it, but there were others that felt like they went on a little long. But here's how I can justify every single thing that they did. Because once that match ended, that place came unglued. That after everything, when Cody finally won that match, the place went nuts. And CM Punk had a line in there where he said, I didn't wait 10 years to lose to Dusty's kid. And CM Punk is so good when he decides to turn that heel part of him on. And you wonder, is that something that was done intentionally? Is that something that has been in CM Punk as a character the whole time? Or was Punk doing what we saw him do in AEW? One thing that Punk is very good at is he reads the crowd and he adjusts to the crowd. When he returned to AEW after the first suspension and some crowds cheered him, he worked as a babyface. And then he would come to the ring as a babyface in other cities, and he was getting booed. And you'd watch as the match progressed, he would kind of transition into working as a heel. And it was really interesting to see. And I felt like that happened at the Royal Rumble. And I do wonder if that was intentional or if Punk read the room. Because what happened in that room, even for me, who I was not a Cody's going to win the Royal Rumble person. I said Cody's not going to win the Royal Rumble. But what happened in that room was I came to the realization, and I wouldn't be surprised if many others in that room came to the realization, that Cody has to win this. Like you could feel it in the stadium. You could feel it between these two guys. Oh, Cody has to win this Royal Rumble. You want to have an event that everybody leaves going, what the hell happened? Then throw Cody over the top rope. But Cody has to win this Royal Rumble. All this build for CM Punk, he can't win this thing. But the idea of Cody losing was such a possibility that I think that's what the tension was. So when Cody finally won, there was this relief, half of which, or maybe more, I don't know what the exact fraction is, was people going, oh, great, Cody won. That's who I wanted to win. And I think the other part of that was people going, thank God, because that's what was supposed to happen. Some people said that it was a predictable Rumble, but I think that the way WWE is doing things these days is, yes, you could argue that it's predictable, but not really in a bad way. The stories are being told as the stories should be told. One of the bad parts of surprising people is that swerves are just done for the sake of swerving. There are so many instances where dumb stuff happened just because people wouldn't expect it. And people wouldn't expect this, so let's do it, is not a reason to do something if it upsets the narrative. Well, people aren't going to see this coming, so we'll do that and then we'll figure it out after. That's not the era that we're in anymore. And we're lucky that that's not the era that we're in anymore, because that's why week to week stuff gets bigger and bigger. And that's why we find ourselves actually caring about all of these characters on television, because they're not just trying to throw a curveball at us and then figuring it out later. Because eventually when you do that, there'll be no cohesion in the storylines. And this is as cohesive storytelling as we've had in the WWE in years and years and years and years. So I'm grateful for it. And I think it's a good thing. And man, I mean, the wild thing. And then I thought it was really great too that Cody Rhodes, with his hand gesture, shouted out Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. This is not great for Sports Illustrated. You know, Sports Illustrated put out that report like last week that they were like, here's what's going to happen. Gunther's going to win the Royal Rumble. Cody and Punk, Rock and Roman, Gunther and Seth. It appears that all of that's incorrect. Shocking. But at that show, at the Royal Rumble, whether you were watching at home or whether you were in that stadium, Cody was the man. Cody was the guy. When Cody went to that press conference and said, I'm the guy, there wasn't anybody that was going, what? It was like, yeah, if you watch the product, yeah, you are. If you go to a live show, yeah, you are the guy. Kids are cheering for this guy. Adults are cheering for this guy. To the point where I'm sitting there and I'm going, based on what I saw tonight, how do you not do Cody and Roman? And I've been blowing the horn of Roman and Rock, of Cody and Punk, of Cody and Seth, of Cody, whatever. I mean, of Punk and Seth, whatever. Like, I've been here saying Roman's going to lose, Roman's going to win, and then Roman wins, and then Roman wins, and then Roman wins. Coming to you fresh off the Royal Rumble, it's tough to say that. and I'm going to need some space before I can say it without ingrained bias. But you can't watch that Royal Rumble and tell me that Cody shouldn't, for lack of a better term, finish the story. You know, it went from, in terms of like what I think is going to be most impactful at WrestleMania, it's literally changing week to week. At one point, I went CM Punk and Seth Rollins, and I said, all of this has been said on this podcast. There's a record of all of this being said probably within the last 6 weeks. I said CM Punk and Seth Rollins can absolutely main event night 2 of WrestleMania. You could make the argument it's the biggest match you could have. Then I said you can have Roman and Cody, and Roman beats Cody on night 1, and Seth and Punk on night 2. Then I went, no. Main event for night 2 has to be Roman versus The Rock. I didn't realize Rock was even in play. So now main event for night 2 has to be Roman versus Rock. That's got to be night 2. Then like a week ago, I was like, oh my God. CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes could absolutely be the main event for night 2 of WrestleMania. If you're going to have Seth Rollins defend that title against somebody else, it ain't going to headline. Not only will Cody and Punk headline one of these nights, but you could easily have them headlining night 2. And now, after all 3 of them, I'm back to the original thing, which is what could be a bigger headline at WrestleMania than Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes. And it's a real interesting thing because all these seeds are being planted right now. It's seeds everywhere. It's like a dandelion. And somebody just blew on it, and the seeds are going everywhere. You're going to have a field full of them. That's what we've got with stories involving all of the top guys, especially on Monday Night Raw right now. But on SmackDown too, because we're talking about Roman, we're talking about Bloodline, we're talking about all this stuff. I mean, it's like we've got a long way to go till WrestleMania. But I don't see, now that he's won the Royal Rumble, how do you get out of Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns? And if you do that, how do you not have Cody finish the story? Now, look, here's the thing. If Cody wrestles Roman Reigns and he doesn't finish the story, some people would argue, well, then the story's over, and what do you do after that? But I don't know if that's true. What is true is, if Cody finishes the story, then by definition, the story's over. I still, and this was proven last year at WrestleMania, wonder what has more after it. Cody not yet finishing the story or Cody finishing the story? Because you can't book something this big for the moment. You have to book for what has the most life after. People went in to WrestleMania 39. Let's say we're going to get Cody versus Roman Reigns. If we are getting Cody versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40, then everybody is going to have to come to terms that Cody losing at WrestleMania 39 was a good call. Because Cody winning the Royal Rumble this year felt way different than Cody winning the Royal Rumble last year. Fact is, Cody won the Royal Rumble last year in the first match of the show. Why? Because everyone knew he was going to win. It just was a given. This year, Cody won the Royal Rumble in the last match on the show. Why? Because people doubted it. They didn't know if he could do it. Cody lost at WrestleMania 39. He walked in with everybody thinking he was going to beat Roman Reigns. Everybody thought that, of course, this is just the way they're doing it. And then he lost, and people couldn't believe it. You know what that means? If he wrestles Roman Reigns at WrestleMania again for the Universal Championship, you won't have that same vibe. You won't have people going, well, of course, Cody's going to win. You'll have people going, Cody might not win. There's a good chance that Cody's not going to win. I hear they're trying to get The Rock ready for SummerSlam or Backlash in France. And if they do, I don't think Cody's going to win. And that's what you want. You want people to want Cody to win, but not be sure if he's actually going to. And then when he does, that's when you get that, whoa! I can't believe it. people thought that Cody losing to Roman meant that people were going to lose interest, that Cody wasn't going to be able to maintain this momentum, but he's built on it. He's bigger today than he was going into WrestleMania 39. And if that match is happening, if we're getting Roman versus Cody, it's going to be a bigger match than it was last year. It's a big if still, though. I mean, think about it, right? I went back to talking. I was talking about Solo Sikoa interfering in Roman Reigns' match in the Royal Rumble and how annoying it was. How good would it feel if Solo Sikoa jumped out to interfere at WrestleMania 40 and Cody put him down and Roman wasn't able to take advantage? How good would it feel if Cody Rhodes neutralized the Solo Sikoa threat once and for all? How good would that feel? If Cody took out Solo and then went right back in that ring and took out the tribal chief. It would be like all this annoyance over all this time is finally like, yes, you paid it off. It feels so good. And maybe that's how you lead to Roman and Solo off of Cody. If Cody neutralizes Solo, maybe Roman's mad at Solo. Maybe Solo's mad at Roman. Maybe that's, when Paul Heyman was talking about what inning of the story we're in, what inning of the bloodline that we're in, it's not about the title reign, right? Roman Reigns could lose to Cody Rhodes and we could be in the 5th inning. 6th inning, maybe. Maybe that's the 7th inning stretch, but we still have 2 more. At least, unless we go into overtime. After that stretch. Maybe inning 8 is Solo and Roman. Maybe we don't get Rock and Roman until the 9th inning. Who knows? But what we do know is that it felt like we were getting all these seeds planted to make it so it was going to be okay that we're not getting Cody versus Roman, and then coming off of the Rumble, we're looking down the barrel at Cody versus Roman. Which is why I tell you, right now, with the WWE specifically, if you don't like the way something's going in a match, if you don't like the way a storyline's going, let them cook. Let them cook. They have earned that trust. You gotta let them cook. They're gonna pay it off. They've been paying it off. Until they stop paying it off, don't assume they're not gonna pay it off. Let them cook. Because we could get a moment that justifies all the annoying Solo Sikoa interference. If we have a roster full of stars because of things like the representation they get in the Royal Rumble, well, that justifies the lack of legends and surprises that are in the Rumble match. If we're going to get something bigger between Kevin Owens and Logan Paul, well, that justifies Kevin Owens losing by disqualification. If we can use narrative to justify the way decisions are made, then while we may not like them in the moment, what we can't do is act like it's happening out of sheer incompetence or because people are bad at their jobs. What we can do is go, that was weird that happened. I don't know why that happened, but I'm going to let him cook. Why does Jey Uso never win? Because won't it feel good when he finally beats Jimmy Uso? Let us cook. Let us cook. Okay. I don't understand why Pat McAfee did this, because we don't have Pat McAfee wrestling anytime soon. You're going to have to let us cook on this one. All right. All right. I'll let you. Okay. I'm not a chef. I just observe. I just eat. I'm going to let you cook. And you can let us cook. By the way, thank you to everybody that came out to the live show. The Notsam Wrestling live podcast in Tampa was unbelievable. I got to surprise you guys because at the very last minute, R-Truth, unfortunately, was not able to make the event. He was on SmackDown on Friday in Miami, so he couldn't be in Tampa on Friday, and I didn't know until the very last minute. However, I was able to get a surprise guest, and I left it a surprise because I wanted you guys that were coming and had bought tickets. I made the announcement that Truth wouldn't be there because I'm not going to bait and switch. But I did want I just wanted a special moment, and I feel like we got it. There's a clip up on my Instagram if you want to see it. But Rhea Ripley was a surprise guest. We had multiple surprise guests. Tommy Dreamer, Gerald Briscoe, and Rhea Ripley were all surprise guests, along with the announced guests of Samantha Irvin and DJ Who Kid. All of them were at the live show, and it was the best. It was so much fun. In fact, it was so much fun, we're going to do it again. Wednesday before WrestleMania. I think that's, what is that, the 3rd of April, maybe? Let me look at my calendar right now, because I should have had the date written down in front of me. Yes, I believe it's April 3rd. Wednesday before WrestleMania, April 3rd in Philadelphia at the Helium Comedy Club. Notsam Wrestling will be live once again. If you missed our podcast in Tampa, you screwed up. Don't do it again. Get tickets right now. They're already on sale. You can go to notsamlive.com. It'll take you right to the Helium Philly website. Get there Wednesday night. It'll be such an awesome way to kick off what will be an incredible long WrestleMania weekend in Philadelphia. That's Wednesday night, April 3rd, notsamlive.com for tickets to see our podcast, Not Sam Wrestling, live at the Helium Comedy Club. I also want to say thanks to Busted Open. If you have SiriusXM, you can probably get the shows on the app. If not, the Busted Open podcast comes out, which has about 45 minutes of the show every day on Friday and Saturday of Royal Rumble week. Tommy Dreamer and I hosted the show and had great interviews with Gunther, Kofi Kingston, Ivy Nile, Cody Rhodes, Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair, a ton of them. So go check all that out. And a lot of that content will also come to the Not Sam Wrestling YouTube channel, where you can also get the podcast that I did for Busted Open, which was an immediate post-Royal Rumble reaction podcast at about 1 o'clock in the morning on the outdoor patio of the hotel that we were staying at in Tampa. So go check all that out. Not Sam Wrestling on YouTube and Busted Open and all that. Let's get to these emails. Got to get to the emails. notsamwrestling@gmail.com is our email address. You want to send us an email, notsamwrestling@gmail.com is the email address to be a part of the show. Let's see. Kid Boo from South Africa. My man, maybe that's where I should go to do a live podcast. The guy who got you into the whole Let Them Cook. I don't know if you got me into Let Them Cook. That's a lot of credit to give yourself, but maybe. I'm writing to say congratulations on your show. It looked like a success, and I can't wait until it drops on YouTube. You're talking about the live show. It was a big success, and we'll at least put parts of it up on YouTube. I can't promise that the entire show will be up on YouTube. If you want to see an entire live show, you got to get to the live show, which I know is tough. I'm sorry, kid, like from South Africa, that's tough. But for people listening, like if you're in Jersey, get to Philly, you know what I mean? Now on to business, as the saying says, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. Is that the saying? To all the Cody Nation, I hate to say it to you, but this is Roman's story. Cody's not finishing the story. We fell for it last year. Let's be wise and learn from our mistakes and accept that Cody is not winning this Mania. I can already see it. Cody's story post-Mania is who is Cody without the story, and then he will show how Roman has to beat Cody to show how important the title is. Then that's when the story ends. Also, can we stop the stacking spot? This one felt very cheesy. I liked it when Randy Orton kicked out from the bottom of the stack. But I mean, I don't know. It's not like they've done the stacking spot over and over and over and over again. It's just a reflection of that WrestleMania. I think it's too early to discuss stories right now, because at WrestleMania is a big night for Cody. Big, big night. Let's go to Wahaj. You know you're the best in the business, but I got to tell you, as an ardent Cody fan, it was a rough couple of weeks for us after The Rock's return, and everyone started downplaying the story. Seeing him win live in Tampa was the best moment of my life. You see? As a wrestling fan of 20-plus years, Cody summed it up perfectly. It was vindicating. Don't you think everyone was too quick to give up on an incredible 2-year investment many such as myself have made in Cody's journey? Yeah, I think that it was done perfectly, to tell you the truth. I think the idea of adding doubt into the story is what the story was lacking. Cody finishing the story, it needs to be doubted as to whether or not it can happen or not. At WrestleMania 39, and I said this then, you didn't have enough doubt. There's nothing to do after that. If it's just like, of course he's going to win, and then he wins, and then he'll just keep winning for a while. That's not a story. If you're going, they're never going to give it to him. Hunter's still mad that he smashed the throne. They're never going to give it to him. And then he gets it. That's what makes it. And I'll tell you right now, you saw that live in Tampa, and it was the best moment of your life. You know how I know that they're doing it right? He won the Royal Rumble last year. This year, it was the best moment of your life. I doubt that last year when he won the Royal Rumble, it was the second best moment of your life. That would lead me to believe that should he win this year, it will be a much bigger deal and feel so much better, so much more vindicating. There was no vindication last year. It'll feel so much better this year if it happens. If. It's a big if. David writes in, big fan of the show, wanted to share my WrestleMania card predictions now that Royal Rumble is over, mostly based in logic with some gaps filled in with wild speculation. Battle Royal. Solo wins the men's Battle Royal. Nia wins the women's Battle Royal. Okay, that's interesting. That means they're not on the card, and I had spots for both of them on my card. Solo with AJ and Nia with Jade, but I'm not to say it could happen. LA Knight versus Logan Paul, okay. Women's tag is Shayna and Stark versus Chance and Carter versus Green and New. Okay, so 4-way for the women's tag. You know, I think that that's safe, but I don't see. You didn't put the Kabuki Warriors in there. Chance and Carter aren't the women's tag team champions anymore. Intercontinental, Gunther versus a babyface Braun Breaker. Possible, definitely possible. Tag team championship, Finn and Damian versus Creed Brothers. I don't see that one really happening, really, to tell you the truth. Jay versus Jimmy, Bayley versus EO, Punk versus Rollins. Okay. And that headlines night 1. Night 2. Ray versus Santos. Yeah, I could see that. A men's tag showcase with Alpha Academy, New Day, DIY, and Imperium. Very possible. Naomi will find a partner to defeat Asuka and Kairi for the women's tag championships. Oh, the other one was just a women's tag showcase. Oh, okay, all right. My bad. Sorry. Shouldn't have doubted you. You're on your game here. Drew versus Sammy. Same thing. Bianca versus Jade. I don't know if we're gonna get that quick. Possible though. Randy and KO defeat Austin Theory and Grayson Waller to win the brand new SmackDown Tag Team Championship. I don't see that happening. Just because, I just don't see that match for either Kevin Owens or Randy Orton. That doesn't sound that great. Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch, okay. Cody versus Roman as the headline. Some of it's, I disagree with some of it, but you got your basic tenants, your building blocks there. This one's coming from Larry. I think the one thing we're going to start missing this year is the attraction match. No Taker, no Triple H, no celebrity. Is this the year Randy Orton enters the phase of his career where the Orton match becomes its own main event? Who else is in that conversation? Roman. Roman's the attraction. You know, Roman became the attraction. Roman, he's the guy. And he doesn't wrestle that often. That's who's there. Is Roman. I think that Randy doesn't want to enter that phase in his career. Randy wants to be an active competitor. Randy wants to be there all the time. So, other than Roman, you could argue Logan Paul is an attraction. He doesn't wrestle all the time. And John Cena is definitely in that attraction phase of his career. So, yeah, you got John Cena, you got Logan Paul, and most importantly, Roman Reigns is an attraction wrestler and the champion. Tim, Rumble needs a shakeup. The same way Survivor Series started, including War Games, I think the Royal Rumble should change one of the matches to a Battle Royal, allow second rope eliminations, or maybe start with 6 competitors already in the ring. Just something. 2 Rumbles is a lot. 2 Rumbles is a lot. 2 War Games is a lot, though. You can't mess with the Royal Rumble. There's nothing in the business that's lasted like the Royal Rumble has lasted. You can't mess with the Royal Rumble. Change one of the matches to a Battle Royal is not the same thing. Second rope eliminations suck. Start with 6. Why would you start with 6? If it's because 2 Rumbles is a lot and you're just going to change the rules of one of them to mix it up, you're going to make that one seem less than, because the one that follows the actual rules is the real Rumble. Yeah, you don't want to mess with the Royal Rumble. Rob writes in, What if Cody is the one to finally take down Roman, but the roster then has to deal with a new bloodline makeup of Solo, Jacob Fatu, Zilla Fatu, managed by Paul Heyman? They get so destructive, Roman is the one who has to fall in line when he returns, leads to Roman turning face, and we get Solo versus Roman. I mean, I love Jacob Fatu. I've only heard great things about Zilla Fatu, so I'm certainly wouldn't be against that, and I would like the idea of this new bloodline. You know, it would be a different thing because they'd all be young. Although I don't know if Paul Heyman would fit as well with them, because unless Paul Heyman was able to really become a mentor as opposed to somebody that was just there to serve, because, you know, a bunch of kids, for lack of a better term. I know Jacob Fatu isn't a kid. He's a grown-ass man. But, like, you know, I don't know if Paul Heyman's going to take orders from Solo, Jacob Fatu, and Zilla Fatu. I think he would have to be the brains behind it, and I don't think that that's the dynamic that you're looking for to lead you to Solo versus Roman, is my only hang-up. But you could take Paul out of it. Imagine Paul Heyman starts managing a babyface Roman Reigns when he returns. That's something. Ultra Boy writes in, January 25th, 2023 was the day you uploaded your video analyzing the trial of the Sami Zayn segment, and that was the first video of yours I ever watched. Oh, that's awesome. Prior to that, in my head, I was always analyzing every Bloodline segment. You were the first YouTuber I watched that truly analyzed wrestling like a movie. And I fell in love with your channel at that point. Watch every podcast every single week. You're the man, dude. I appreciate that. I used to think podcasts were stupid. Almost all of them are. But watching you and then later on Stash Club Wrestling really changed my view. I hope all these podcasters are listening to Ultra Boy and realizing that I am the gateway. They're like, all these podcasts are stupid. And then they watch mine and they go, well, that's not stupid. Maybe I can give these other ones a try. What I'm trying to say is you're welcome for the house. Kyle writes in, out of these options, which Seth Rollins gimmick was your favorite and why? Shield, Authority, Universal Champion, Messiah, Visionary, or current Rollins? I mean, I could probably even rank them. It probably goes Authority, Messiah, Visionary, Authority, Messiah, Visionary, Shield, current, Universal Champion. And maybe that's just because I like him better as a heel. I thought his run with the Authority was great. And that's the run that he was on when he won the title at WrestleMania Push Play. You know, and the worst Seth Rollins is still better than almost everybody. So, you know, I think current Seth Rollins is great. But I really like the Monday Night Messiah. I would say the Authority and the Messiah are my favorites. Let's see. Pierre, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Let's say Pierre. Pierre writes in, long-time listener, first-time email. What do you think of this Drew McIntyre versus Sami Zayn at Mania? Okay, I like it. Drew wins by cheating, and that puts a temporary end to the feud. Then Drew gains momentum by feuding with Punk at Backlash and the PLE after that. Punk is not champion because as of right now, I don't know why, but I have a hunch that Seth is retaining at Mania. Now, since Cody won the Rumble, I'm currently assuming he will finish the story. So I'll have Cody versus Sami at Backlash. But Sami lost, though. Babyface versus babyface. After he loses to Cody, Sami will face Gunther. So he gets to fight. He loses to Drew and fights all of the champions for the IC belt and still lose. And then finally, Sami wins the Money in the Bank briefcase. Then Drew wins the World Heavyweight title from Seth on the same night. Then Sami cashes in immediately in Toronto. Sami is the sixth person to win Money in the Bank and cash in the same night, and the first to do it in their home country. I don't know. I don't love it, to tell you the truth. I don't love the idea of Sami having to lose all those matches. I don't understand why Sami would lose to Drew and then get an opportunity at every title. And I don't love same-night cash-ins, usually, especially for a heroic moment like that, because it doesn't get to build at all. If Sami were a heel, I'd probably be okay with it. But the idea of a babyface heroically cashing in his hometown, if he does it the same night he won the briefcase, I don't know. I think you lose something for me. Michael, hello to the tribal chief of all wrestling podcasters, Mr. Sam Roberts. Look, I'm a humble guy, but I'm just asking that everybody just please acknowledge me, okay? If this question has already been discussed, then please disregard this email. I was listening to Peter Rosenberg's podcast Friday, and someone asked if he'd like to see Rock and Roman have a year-long build to their potential match at another WrestleMania besides this year. He said yes, and I want to know your opinion on the potential story. How could they pull it off? Both superstars aren't present full-time. It was different with Rock and Cena. No, I wouldn't like that. I don't mind if it takes a year to get there, but no, I didn't like, it's annoying. I don't think it was good. I mean, I think that the Rock-Cena matches were good, but I don't think that those years were good for Cena at all. I think that once things started heating up and you really started building up towards those WrestleManias, then yes, having Rock-Cena matches were good. But I think the fact that, like, for a year, John Cena's matches didn't matter because everybody knew he was wrestling The Rock in a year, and then another year, they do it again, although I guess the second year wasn't a year in the making. The first year was. No, I didn't like it. I don't think they should do it again. And if they did, I mean, yeah, it handcuffs you in telling stories to announce a year in advance what's going to happen, especially because you don't know what's going to happen. What if somebody gets injured? What if something hotter comes along? And I know you're saying it's Rock and Roman. What could be hotter? I don't know. Who hotter? Top dollar, not nada. No, it's a no for me, dog. Jeff writes in, love the pod. I don't blame you. With the way that Gunther has held the Intercontinental title for so long, and the United States Championship being on a part-time special attraction in Logan Paul, what do you think about the WWE adding in another mid-card title like the television championship? I think it's wholly unnecessary. I feel like it would be a great way to add to the mid-card guys with Chad Gable, Ivar, Bronson Reed, Carmelo Hayes, Grayson. You don't need titles. It could lead to a shorter title reign, but not as much of a joke as the 24/7 title. More titles is not more interesting. It's usually less interesting. It's confusing. And it makes the more titles you have, the less they all mean. You shouldn't need a title to make a match interesting. Chad Gable is interesting whether he's wrestling for a title or not. Santos Escobar is interesting just in the fact that he's got a feud going on with Carlito. Ivar and Bronson Reed are just fun to watch. I don't think there's any reason to add more titles. WCW did that. They put the United States title on Bill Goldberg. He wasn't losing to anybody. So here's the TV title. The TV title sucked in WCW. It's terrible. U.S. title wasn't even that good. There's no reason for it. WWE's gotten rid of the Cruiserweight Championship and the 24/7 Championship. I'd be interested in seeing a TV championship that's defended weekly on Raw or SmackDown or even all three brands with NXT. That's the other thing. If you announced every week it'll be defended, what if there's a week that there's more going on in the show? You don't want to do it. Like, you're like committed to something now. What do you think about that? I think I've told you. Or do you think it'd be better if they added a trios title? No, it'd be horrible. Trios, no. No, not more titles. I appreciate you, Jeff. More stories, not more titles. More stories, not more titles. And certainly not a trios championship. Avery, Sam, I'm sure like everyone, we watched the Royal Rumble and saw Cody win the match and everybody disappointed in CM Punk not winning. That's not what I saw. But I think from a business perspective, and that is that they want to fill another stadium of people cheering CM Punk on being in Australia. What do you think? No, I think that Cody won the match and everybody cheered for Cody. I don't know what you're talking about, bro. Kanjay writes an essay. I'm not going to even... Sorry, buddy. Gran writes in, so it seems like Cody will be finishing his story, huh? I really don't get how people didn't see Cody versus Roman as the ultimate main event of WrestleMania 4. By the way, everybody turning around now and going like, I told you so. Like, did you? Did you or did you feel it too? Did you doubt it too? Did you really, when you're sitting there watching Rock call out Roman Reigns, and you're sitting there watching Cody and Punk have this amazing moment on Monday Night Raw, were you like, that'll never happen? I don't think you were. Just because The Rock made reference to a head of the table, all of a sudden he's getting Cody's spot. It's not Cody's spot. Never bought it. Okay, sure, you're the one. Triple H is just messing with you guys. Oh, he's just kidding. Don't worry, guys. Triple H is just playing around. He's teasing potentially the biggest match in WWE history as a gag. The time for Roman's reign to end was always going to be WrestleMania 40, and Cody is the guy. So what happens if it doesn't happen then, dude? What are you talking about? Also, some notes from the Rumble. The final 15 minutes of the Women's Rumble were pure perfection. I had goosebumps till the end. I would agree with that. It was awesome. Love that both number 30s were returning underdog baby faces. Yeah, I'm good with that. Last year, Becky and Seth entered the Rumble at the exact same number. This year, Jimmy Uso and Naomi did. That's cute. That's a great little trivia fact. All right, I like that. Jacob writes in, just wanted to share something I've noticed recently and see what you think. It seems like WWE is setting up Jey Uso to face or beat Gunther. Okay, let's see where that logic is. Earlier this month, Jey declared that his goal was to win a singles championship this year. That's true. Could mean nothing, could mean something. Everything counts, Jacob. You're not wrong for pointing it out. He did say that. He recently established an on-screen friendship with the New Day as they feud with Imperium. Okay. He defended one of them from a backstage attack by Imperium a couple of weeks ago on Raw. Okay. And the scene ended with a shot of him staring down one of the Imperium guys. Okay. Gunther eliminated Jey from the Rumble. Has a match with Kingston on Monday. I see Gunther winning and then Imperium beating down New Day, leaving Jey to make the save and take the place as the new challenger. If this scenario plays out, and I think it's likely, could you see Jey beating Gunther? Wow. So, like, short answer, no. But, you know, theoretically, if you could do it like that, you could have Jey. If Jey beat Gunther at Elimination Chamber, and then he's defending the Intercontinental title against Jimmy at WrestleMania, I mean, that'd be a big deal, but it would also kind of go against my idea that he's losing matches to add credibility to Jimmy as they go into WrestleMania. Because that's my thing, right? If Jey beats Gunther, it's got to be before WrestleMania because he's going for Jimmy at WrestleMania, I would assume, unless he's not. So if Gunther loses the Intercontinental title, what's he got at WrestleMania? Would you want to stop Gunther's momentum like that before WrestleMania? I don't know. I don't know if that's worth it to add the Intercontinental title to Jimmy versus Jey. I don't know about that. This is going to be the last email. Simone from Belgium. But I'm Italian, so the E isn't silent. Simone? I hope you and your family are doing great. Thank you. Your podcast is one of the is the one true island of relevancy. I think that's true. I think that's very true. I have a couple probably unpopular opinions about this weekend's Royal Rumble and a couple questions for you. Okay. What was your favorite moment of the night? Mine was the pre-show when Waller screamed, "Hey, it's Sam Roberts," when we saw Peter Rosenberg. That's so funny. That's my favorite moment of the night, too. Grayson Waller, "Hey, it's Sam Roberts." Do you have any idea how much I love being referenced on pre-shows that I don't even have to be on? It's like not having to go to work, but still getting credit for it. It's the coolest thing. But on a real level, like, those are the things that really boggle my mind. Like, even more so than the cool stuff that I get to do is the idea that, like, I'm just watching the show and my name gets mentioned on the show. Like, that is so crazy to me. So, I mean, in a very real way, I can't tell you how grateful and appreciative I am that stuff like that happens, because it's nuts. It's really crazy. Number 2, personally, I think the female Rumble was better of the two. I would agree with you. I felt the climax and pop of entrance was higher in the later stages, and the whole match in general felt more enjoyable. LA Knight once again looked great in the world title picture, but the match itself wasn't it for me. Okay, but again, that could be designed. We got to let them cook. I think that the time has come for the 30 entrants are too few for how good and deep the roster has become. If WrestleMania doubled its matches because money and more people deserving a showcase, I think the Rumble could be 40 to 45 people, especially because more NXT superstars could have made it and look good in the process. Here's the problem with that. It's too long. You're not wrong about the number of people, but the matches become too long. They did a 40-man Royal Rumble one year. It's way too long. It can't go. It's too long as it was. I mean, the women's Royal Rumble was great, and it was really long. The men's Royal Rumble was good, and it was really long. You can't add another. You'd be adding a third. Take that long match you already have and add a third to it. Add another 20 to 30 minutes to it. No way, dude. You can't. Number 4, looking back at last year's WrestleMania aftermath, wasn't this what everybody thought we were going to get? Cody winning the Rumble again and have Roman versus Cody Part 2. Is this a Triple H gives the fans what they want moment? Yes. I think that it was as simple as that. And that's one of those things that going back to when people criticize it for being predictable, I think it's a lot more just like, here's what you want. Here, we're not going to overcomplicate it. This is it. Now, I don't know if that continues, but that's how I felt after the Rumble. And then finally, is there any part of you that would change your Cody is not finishing the story at WrestleMania? I had your same opinion, but now I felt it all coming full circle, especially because it doesn't look like the other potential contenders in Roman, in case Roman retains. Yeah. Yes. I'm not ready to definitively say today Cody is not finishing the story at WrestleMania. I can't say that definitively anymore today. Next week, in a month, after the Chamber, right before WrestleMania, maybe I'll be able to say it. But right now, based on the Rumble, I can't. What I can say is I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, make sure you leave a rating. Make sure you leave a review. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, leave comments, hit like. If you're not watching on YouTube, watch on YouTube as well as listen on audio. And we'll be back probably with another emergency podcast here on Notsam Wrestling. Thank you, everybody.